The future of game art, 3D art, CG art, all that stuff. What does the future look like? Should you even start learning this sort of thing if you're interested? What do you do? Let's talk about that. Hey, I'm Jay, and I want to talk about the future of game art and 3D modeling kind of as I see it. This is opinions essentially, and people ask me what I think about this because I am a game artist. I teach that stuff, I do this sort of thing, and I like to do it, and I like to help people doing it. So there seems to be a lot more general anxiety about the future of this sort of stuff now than I've ever seen. And I think that comes from two main things. The first is sort of the state of the industry and what that's looked like over the last 2 years, and then a general threat of AI and what that could mean. So in this video, I want to give you my opinion on what I think about these two subjects and why I'm generally optimistic. I'm generally an optimistic person about this sort of thing. First and foremost, I want to continue to encourage people that are just interested in this to do it. If you are truly interested or enamored or passionate about 3D modeling or CG art in some way, then just do it, okay? You should not do it for a career or for money. It's a silly way to make money. And, it's just a personal pet peeve of mine that, and when it comes to drawing and painting, like, is that a practical thing to do? Doesn't technology eclipse that? Yeah, but do we tell people, hey, put that crayon down? There's no career in that. No, we tell people, go ahead and do that. And so it's one of the things that I've always wanted to somehow do with this channel and making videos about this sort of niche thing that I love is to try and help promote CG art as an art form that is just worth doing to do it for the joy of doing it. And it is fun, it is rewarding in and of itself. And that's really the mindset that can take you a long way to get so good that you might be able to get paid doing it. Now, it shouldn't be a means to get paid, okay? But I am going to talk about careers and the industries that I'm a part of, that people want to be a part of, to try to give some facts about it, because I do think it is possible. Obviously, I'm doing it and I know other people doing it, and I think people generally have a more negative outlook than I think it deserves, and that's why I want to talk about it in this video. So let's dive in, and let me start with my own little personal journey here. 15, 20 years ago, when I was going to learn how to make games and stuff, it seemed silly, but I went to a college for game art and design. And while I was in college, there was several emerging technologies that made a huge impact. There was a new console cycle that just came out while I was in college, which had new advancements in rendering and materials. Things like normal maps, which are awesome, obviously. Things like glossiness even, and specular variety. Gears of War was the most popular cool thing for me at that time. And then software like ZBrush. So it's weird for me to think that when I signed up and enrolled into this college, like, none of these things were a thing. So I don't know what I was doing. I guess I was just going to hand paint simple models like Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament style. In the last 15 years of doing things professionally, I've seen texture sizes, pixel counts, and polygon counts more than quadruple for game characters, and in some cases way more than that. Hellblade 2. I'm looking at you, Hellblade 2. The bottom line is the overall craftsmanship and skill level has increased in what it takes to make a game character, as well as all of these technologies that have come and grown to facilitate like these advancements. Like, essentially the bar keeps getting higher and technology keeps creating steps for us to walk up there. And I feel like I've been riding that wave the whole time. So as I see it, workflows are always changing, technology is always changing, and we're always trying to chase this bar. So I do see the future as essentially continuing. I think some people think AI is a sort of a question mark that is different in some way. And I do think in a lot of ways it is. It's definitely like an exponential factor in some cases. And also I think it's like impossible to predict. But I do not see it replacing creative jobs necessarily. I still see it as a tool for the foreseeable future. So I think it's just important for people that are interested in this sort of thing, especially newcomers, that everything is changing all the time. Every year there are big important updates. And for me, It's exciting, more tools to play with, more things, but it's not necessarily you learn a skill and practice it for a long time. There are fundamentals, like for character artists, things like anatomy and characterization, emotions, sculpting skills, texturing, lighting, presentation. There's things that you can improve on and you can practice for your lifetime. But then, yeah, tools and techniques and technology is just always changing all the time. And that's a good thing. But people may not be so used to that. And it might just seem jarring, or it might seem like a jump rope game that you're just waiting to jump inside, and you just got to jump inside and just keep jumping. There's never going to be a perfect time. So I think it's important that you expect change and know that things are not on a solid ground. The best way to describe the mindset is that the journey is the goal. It is a constant, continual stair climb. Everyone in the industry, from the super smart engineer technology people all the way down to people like us with pens in our hands, are all trying to make cooler, better stuff. And that's just what's happening year after year. It's gonna always get a little better, a little bit different. It isn't necessarily a fixed point that we're all aimed at. It's just a general improvement, like raising the bar each time. How can we get better and better? Okay, let's briefly talk about the state of the game industry, the current landscape that I see it. So generally, I think the negative outlook about the game industry comes from a couple things. One is, in the last 2 years, we've had these big layoffs and we've had big shifts from ownership and corporations, and a lot of people get displaced doing that. I think it's worth pointing out, this is not something that happens all the time, okay? It is a thing about the game industry that it's volatile compared to other things. Like I told my wife, I can't tell you where I'm going to be in 5 years from now, and things are getting a little bit more predictable for people like me, but it's just the name of the game. But it's pretty solid, and the last couple of years is not representative. Another thing to point out is during the pandemic, games and stuff at home actually grew. It was good for certain industries, including the game industry. And these big corporations are businesses, and businesses be businessing. They just doubled down, tripled down, and they got it while the getting was good. They scaled up, they diversified, they placed a lot of bets. Now, after the pandemic, things start to shrink down, inflation's going up. Now, they're publicly traded corporations. They have to make sure their books are good. What happens? They spent years developing multiple projects and growing teams and trying different sectors and placing different bets, essentially. And then they're cutting all the ones they think have the least chance of success. They're trying to be profitable, publicly traded corporations, which is not a game artisty type of thing. But that's just what's going on. Microsoft making big acquisitions, Activision making big acquisitions. They're trying to plan for their futures. It's just kind of cold hard math for them. And so sometimes artists are the pawns in these games and we get displaced. And then you try to find work. So the industry itself, the job market got flooded with thousands of talented people. A big period of time, including now, there's still really talented people in the job market, and those people are probably going to take jobs over people trying to enter in. So it's been harder to enter in. The other reason why I think there's a negative outlook on games is what we're seeing with the big AAA failures like Concord recently. Netflix recently also closed up their AAA game they were developing, and really big, important people are out of work temporarily. Hundreds of millions of dollars go to waste. It's big news in the game industry. And we see more and more kind of negative commentary about these big AAA games like in Assassin's Creed, and you go on and on. What I see is, in general, we have the gaming community of players being more critical and just less receptive to the traditional big AAA kind of development. Okay, and I just see the AA market and the single A market continuing to grow and people enjoying those games. It makes more and more sense. It's making less and less sense to place these big $100 million bets on new IPs to sell discs for a premium price or to try to figure out some sort of model that makes sense. There's just so much more competition now, and the quality and the satisfaction has gone up where people can only buy or play so many games, and to squeeze in there, it doesn't make much business sense, at least the way things have been going. So I think there is going to be a shift in how people develop games and try to place those bets. Right now, we just see the most successful, really big games are sequels on sequels on sequels. They're brands that people know. But what Concord did is take this really big $100 million bet on a new IP, and if it fails, it's catastrophic. So I just don't think that's going to continue going either. And so we're probably going to see a shift in how companies are trying to make game art as a business work too. So those are the reasons why I think the industry had a negative outlook. Both those things I think are kind of a moment in time and not necessarily like, oh, that's going to happen every year. By contrast, as a lot of people are being displaced out of a job, being laid off, there's an anxiety about the game industry because of these big corporate layoffs and acquisitions. I am at a smaller studio and it was having one of the best years of its 20-year history. It wasn't an indication of the industry as a whole. It's just this sector of it, which is these big corporations, these publicly traded companies, ones that had billions of dollars to spend and make big bets, and now they had to make shifts. But these smaller, more nimble companies, they didn't have those same issues. Not everyone. It wasn't reflective of the entire game industry as a whole. It was just the biggest, loudest stuff that was going on. And in the meantime, lots of other things were happening at that same period of time. Then you have the AI anxiety. Hey, what does AI mean? Is that going to replace a person, like a whole person? If I'm someone that doesn't have any skills at all right now, or I'm growing them, is there even a future as a career artist in games or entertainment somehow? Everyone's making predictions. Like predicting the future, I think is a big waste of time. But I'll just tell you, like from my own experience, I don't see at all a person that has a job like myself that's a 3D modeler being actually replaced in the next 5 to 10 years or anything like that. AI is becoming more integrated into workflows. Lots of studios, lots of companies are essentially making their own AI models now. There is like a legality issue, a moral issue in some circles, right, about how to use this. But the incentives are so strong. The AI is not going anywhere. People and companies are figuring out how to do it in a way that's acceptable and legal. It's just such a big of X factor business-wise that there's no way it's not going to continue and be more and more integrated. But it is more of a tool, and we're already using it. Everyone's using it in some way. You're using it too. It's just what we put that AI label on is kind of different and personal, really. Like what offends different people is personal. And so when I say AI is a threat, everyone has a different thing in their mind of what that means. It is a big spectrum, but it's absolutely here to stay in thousands, if not tens of thousands of ways that it manifests and just works its way into workflows. But actually replacing a whole person, not at all something that I see happening anytime soon. So those are some of the challenges and negative outlooks, but there is a lot of opportunity that I want to highlight too for people that have that kind of anxiety. Now, I mentioned the AAA market, how it's just not making that much business sense when you compare it like 10 years ago, but the single A and the double A markets of games, essentially things that don't cost tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, the majority, like the things you see on Steam, $20 games that are developed by 5 people, 2 people, 1 person, those are growing huge year after year after year. And in part because tools like Unreal Engine and like other things that do use some AI are getting better and better, and they're being put in the hands of people, right? They're getting more democratized and skill levels going up. Education is more easily accessible. And so there's just this big growth of people outside of the like institution and corporations that have been adding to games and the industry as a whole for a long time. The video game market as a whole is projected to grow 13% year after year, all the way to like 2030. But there's no projections at all that the game industry is like gonna tank. It's just changing and morphing, just like we saw, movies coming off theatrical down to streamers. What happened? A lot more jobs, a lot more opportunities, a lot more content, right? Technology got more accessible. You're gonna have a world where thousands, tens of thousands of games are coming out every year, and people are trying to figure out how to monetize that, how to get it into people's hands. More people are getting smartphones. High-speed internet is becoming more and more global. Just the global market in general is growing, and there's more and more of an appetite for games. So what does this mean for you as an enthusiast or as someone that is thinking about trying to make a career out of this or wants to know if there is a future in it? It comes down to a couple things. Staying open, be open not only to what's coming down the line, be open to new workflows and technologies, and be open to new opportunities. A real common thing when I am working with students and talking about planning and future goals, and I know this from experience, is you think about the 3 or 4 studios you know by name off the top of your head, and that's where you imagine going. But there are literally thousands of opportunities in those single and double A markets that are great opportunities that need people to make cool models. They need people to make cool games. It's a faster development. It's, more fluid. It's more open. That's where the majority of opportunities will be. Smartphones, AR, VR, platforms like Apple Arcade. There's just things that are in the blind spots of people, and that's where there's going to be a lot of opportunity and a lot of growth. These AAA things, it is hard to get your foot in the door. There's a lot of competition. They kind of get the pick of the litter, and there aren't that many jobs, okay? Like in my studio, there's 4 character artists that are 3D modelers. For reference, between 2018 and 2023, indie developers made up 99% of the video game market. And it made up about 40% of the total sales of games in that period of time. So AAA is 1% taking a huge bite. Those are the big money moves, right? But when you're thinking about opportunities, when you think about the future, 99% is the indie stuff. 99% of those indies you've never heard of. So being open is so crucial. And then also be open to technology and this AI thing. AI is a threat to some people, probably in some way. But AI is a tool if you use it that way. And we use AI already in a lot of things. Obviously, things like upscaling and denoising. I don't think people have a problem with that, right? We use it all the time. If you render in Blender or a lot of things that are using the NVIDIA denoiser, hey, it saves a lot of time. And then when it comes to game development and stuff we do right now, things like MetaHuman Animator, which I was so excited about. I am so excited about, right? You get to film your face animating. It's using the LiDAR on your phone. And what does it do? It sends that data off into the cloud, which is using a bank of computers, and it's using machine learning to give you back some amazing animation. That's awesome. That's a great example of the kind of thing that we're on the cusp of now, and we're going to use more and more. Things that would have cost millions of dollars 10 years ago, and you get them in your hands. That goes with kind of all kinds of animations, just the machine learning type of animations that are doing blends and are saving a bunch of time. Like even Unreal's latest motion matching project, which is essentially Uncharted that you can get for $10 or something, right? And you can play on your computer at home and you can make your own like Uncharted style game, which is insane, right? Even things like Z remesher and UV unwrapping, those kind of things that we do if you're a ZBrush user, that's technically AI. Those are using algorithms, and I think all of us would want those to get a little bit better and improve, right? And those are ways that it just helps assist artists and creatives to make more in a shorter amount of time. And that's definitely, I think, what's going to be happening in the next 5 to 10 years. In 2023 alone, there were 80,000 jobs in the game industry. Now, that's not artists alone, right? That's software developers and everything. But it grows year after year. And 40,000 of them are in California, where I'm at. But coming after the pandemic, we saw a lot of remote work, and location is being less and less of a factor, thankfully. So about 17% were recorded as remote jobs. And I see that growing year after year too. There's a lot of talented people in different parts of the world. And as we figure that out and make physical location less of a barrier to entry, I think also opportunity is going to go up and quality is going to go up. Okay, so if you are an aspiring artist or an artist right now and you're trying to improve your odds for the future, what can you do? You build a strong portfolio. That's the main thing. That is your image online for doing this sort of thing. And that means that you're continually working on your art, making projects and improving. It's easier said than done, but that's the main focus that you should have. It's just making better and better art. And then when you are applying for work, when you are learning new technologies and stuff, just stay adaptable, be open. That's the best mindset you can have moving forward. Okay, let's talk about a few things I'm excited about when it comes to the future of character art, at least, and game art and stuff. Like that's the stuff I care about, obviously, and what I think about. So just to give you a glimpse, if like you're into making real-time characters, if you're into 3D modeling, character stuff. So here's some stuff I'm excited about on the horizon. There's hair. Like I can make a whole subject about hair. Their strand-based hair is becoming more and more usable. That means instead of hair cards, we have actual strands. Those strands can like clump together. The rendering is better. The animation is better. It looks better. It's getting less and less expensive, and also hardware is catching up, and the advancements of Unreal Engine are making that more possible. The LOD problem is being solved by the hair card generator tool that Unreal's making and developing. The future is actually good hair in games. Super stoked about that. In general, rendering is getting better, having higher polygon counts, having more nuanced lighting. You know, we see, mega lights, but things like Lumen. In general, GI, area light, softer shadows, That's getting better. We see cloth getting better, the actual cloth simulation, even muscle simulation in general, that kind of organic, squash and stretch secondary motion that's happening. That's getting better. That's going to make a big difference in things looking more like naturalistic, whether or not you're stylized or not. Having cloth and physics in general that are believable and that just come for free are really an awesome way to elevate your projects and your characters too. And then, last but not least, when it comes to characters, facial animation. I mentioned MetaHuman Animator earlier. That sort of thing in general, the machine learning techniques of getting more nuanced facial animation from performances that are captured. The highest tier version of that is what Weta was doing on Avatar 2 and like all the sequels, But coming all the way down to games in real time, we're going to be able to do that in a way that's just more scalable in the hands of people. The highest thing you can achieve is a digital character emoting and affecting the viewer, and that is becoming more possible as game characters too, which is awesome. Now, here's the thing. What was game art is not just about games anymore. Real-time modeling and animation has been used with Unreal Engine for years now in big budget movies for previs and in TV shows and movies with LED volumes to create the final pixels that we see. And more than that, now we're seeing people create full episodes of TV shows and movies in Unreal using real-time modeling and texturing. Last year, even Weta Digital, world-renowned VFX company, created an animated short called The War Is Over entirely in Unreal Engine, and they had to create a workflow pipeline for them to do that. A lot of the team members never used Unreal before. This film won an Academy Award that year. So the first Unreal Engine linear media to win an Academy Award. And this shows you the type of investment and time a company like Weta is willing to make and what they think about this technology's future. And more recently, we've seen an entire episode of Love, Death, Robots created in Unreal Engine and a full episode in the Secret Level anthology created entirely in Unreal Engine. And I would argue the quality is just as good as offline rendering. And so all across the entertainment industry, we see an adoption of real-time modeling, animation, texturing, and rendering. And so it's not just games, even though games is on the rise and indie games is getting more easily accessible and the platforms to sell them are getting better. But it's also all of these potential opportunities across the entertainment industry all need talented real-time artists. And I only see this all continuing to grow. I think the best way to sum that up is to hear from Tim Miller himself, founder of Blur Studio, director of Deadpool, creator of Love, Death, Robots, and Secret Level.
Nobody can be more genuine when I say that I believe real-time technology is the future, and I couldn't be more excited about all the potential possibilities and doorways it opens for us to create and tell bigger stories.
My dream has always been to be able to create CG characters and amazing imagery and storytelling and epicness, doing that at home on a personal computer. I think that was exciting. That's becoming more and more of a reality every year. You could argue we're kind of already there. And so I think it's just an amazing time to be a digital artist.